We are delighted to have the Honorable Eric Schneiderman, Attorney General of the State of New York, as our commencement speaker. After graduating from college, he spent 2 years as a deputy sheriff in Pittsfield, Massachusetts, working mainly in the Berkshire House of Corrections, where he helped launch a pioneering drug and alcohol treatment program. That's probably where the justice bug bit him, and shortly thereafter, he went to Harvard Law. The rest, as they say, is history. A federal clerkship, 15 years as an attorney, then a partner at a major New York City law firm, where he started out representing banks, but wound up in charge of all of the firm's public interest work. He represented the Urban League in a suit against the MTA to roll back a fare hike that he argued disproportionately affected minority communities. He helped tenants trying to evict drug dealers from their buildings, and he protected women seeking access to health clinics. He told Newsday, quote, "I just realized that my heart wasn't in billable clients anymore, and I really wanted to do public service and public interest work, and that led me to run for the state Senate." That he did in 1998, winning an underdog race in a district representing Manhattan's Upper West Side and portions of the Bronx. In a dozen years in Albany, he had a hand in ensuring sweeping ethics reforms, chaired the committee to expel a corrupt senator for the first time in modern history, led the effort to reform the draconian Rockefeller drug laws, and cracked down on health insurance companies seeking to deny coverage to vulnerable New Yorkers. And then in November of 2010, he was elected New York's 65th Attorney General. From his first day in office, he has worked tirelessly to restore New Yorkers' faith in their public and private institutions by focusing on government integrity, economic and social justice, and environmental protection. He's the son of a self-described kid from the Jewish ghetto, a classic American success story. His father, Erwin Schneiderman, attended Brooklyn's Boys High and graduated from Brooklyn College, served as a Navy officer during World War II before attending law school on the GI Bill, and went on to a distinguished 50-plus career as an attorney and a partner and later senior counsel at Cahill, Gordon, and Rindell, and as a philanthropic leader who guided the New York City Opera, Lincoln Center, and the Central Park Conservancy, among others. Of his work in the Attorney General's office, he has said, quote, "My guiding principle is equal justice under law. This is our most quintessentially American ideal. It's the underpinning of our democracy. And when there's injustice, it is my obligation as the state's top law enforcement officer to try to remedy that injustice." And we have seen that youthful energy and commitment play out in an extraordinary and almost daily record of achievement. He already has a long list of accomplishments, including a new Taxpayer Protection Bureau to root out fraud and return stolen money from taxpayers, a Medicaid fraud control unit which has recovered tens of millions of dollars, a groundbreaking initiative to investigate government corruption, and the appointment of public integrity officers in every region of the state to give New Yorkers a place to go to report complaints without the fear of local politics influencing the outcome. A hallmark of his tenure has been standing up to powerful interests on behalf of everyday New Yorkers. He's taken a leading role in the national fight for a comprehensive investigation of misconduct in the mortgage market and to hold banks accountable for their role in the foreclosure crisis. And for us at Touro, the AG is a particularly appropriate commencement speaker because he has described Judaism as the driving force in his political philosophy. Quote, "The Constitution of the State of New York doesn't really define the role of the Attorney General," he told the congregation at a Manhattan synagogue. "I do have to serve as the state's lawyer and defend the state, but in areas of pursuit of justice or affirmative litigation areas, the Constitution does not tell me what my mission is or what the scope of my duty is. In the absence of constitutional authority, I have chosen to look to another set of books to tell me what the goals of my office should be," he said, meaning the Hebrew Scripture, books in which we are directed to seek justice and justice alone. We could not be more honored and delighted to have Attorney General Eric Schneiderman with us today to share words of wisdom and to welcome our graduates to the profession.
Thank you, and thanks to all of you for allowing me to share in this extraordinary and happy occasion. My voice is a little bit scratchy, but my voice is still strong, and I would not pass up an opportunity to be here with you today because this is really a very special school. And I want to start by thanking your dean for that generous introduction. I'm going to speak about quite a few lawyers today, but the first one I want to speak about is Dean Salkin, because I have benefited personally from her work. She was on my transition committee when I became Attorney General and brought extra wisdom to the battle because she had been on other transition committees for my predecessors. She has contributed in commissions and committees in so many areas of our state, recognized by the National EPA for her work defending the environment. And I have to say that she is not just a great professor and a great steward of your institution. She's a terrific lawyer and colleague in the quest for justice. Thank you. And of course, I want to thank the faculty, the staff, all the administrators, the trustees of the College of Law. Thank you for creating and building such a wonderful institution. Thank you for helping it grow and reinvent itself. You can feel the energy here, and I know of the good work you do. This actually, of all the places I've spoken at law schools, this one feels at home because it reminds me very much of my synagogue, actually. Rooted in values that tell us to do justice, with a social action commitment and a social action network, and a vigorous argument about every aspect of every piece of text. This is what law schools should be, and I have to say to the people who are here graduating, to my new colleagues as lawyers, take a look around for a moment, and it's been said before, but we can't say it often enough because it's a fundamental element of human understanding. I am not of the view that you're on your own in life. None of us got here alone. We've all had help. Parents, partners, siblings, spouses, friends, mentors. To all of the people here and all the people who couldn't make it here, we thank you for getting this great crop of new lawyers in place to be launched on the world to make this a safer, more just, and more equitable society. So thanks to you all. And it's been acknowledged before, but I do want to say something about my closest connection with the Law Center. Since I became Attorney General, one of my major focuses has been the foreclosure crisis and the collapse of the housing market, both to hold accountable the financial institutions that caused the crash of the market and to try to get relief to those who are harmed by the crash. We've gotten settlements, including $13 billion settlement with JP Morgan Chase, the largest in American history, through the working group that I chair. And we've been using those funds to help homeowners and to try and come up with more creative ways to help people who were hurt by the crash of the housing market. When I took office, half of the 345,000 New York families facing foreclosure had to do so without having a chance to talk to a lawyer at any stage of the process. So with the first of the money we recovered, we set up what we call our Homeowner Protection Program, or HOP. And ladies and gentlemen, my new colleagues, you will understand it more and more as you go forward in your career, but the right to a lawyer is the right that enables you to protect every other right. And our Homeowner Protection Program now funds almost 100 legal services and housing counseling agencies across the state of New York. On my watch, no New York family will be evicted from their home wrongfully because they didn't get a lawyer. And that And one of our HOP grantees, one of our outstanding HOP grantees, is the Mortgage Foreclosure and Bankruptcy Law Clinic here at Touro. Touro students and faculty have helped hundreds of families, counseled them, helped people stay in their homes, helped people make transitions when that was not possible. You made a difference in many, many people's lives. And along with the pro bono foreclosure assistance program that you also run here, there really is not a college of law or a law school in the United States that has done more to help people hurt by the crash of the housing market in 2008 than the College of Law here at Touro, and I congratulate you for that great work. Now, today is an honorific occasion. We dress up in these robes, and it has a formal character to it, but it's appropriate because, ladies and gentlemen, it is a tremendous honor to be a lawyer in the United States of America, where it's not just my office, but our whole society is really rooted in the concept of equal justice under law. And it's important to understand as you go forward the great tradition that you enter into today. And as the dean indicated, I can't pretend not to be biased about this. My grandfather never finished elementary school. My father went to Brooklyn College for free, was in the Navy in World War II, went to law school on the GI Bill, practiced law at a firm that had never made a Jewish partner before, became the first Jewish partner at that firm, and then lived to see his son become the Attorney General of New York State. So the law and the constant evolution of American law towards greater equality is a very important thing to my family. I also have to mention that my father's older brother, who was a college professor, decided he'd always wanted to go to law school, so at the age of 59, he went back to law school. My father's older brother, becoming a lawyer at 62, he's an interesting character. He had so many parts replaced, shoulders, knees, and hips, that at the end of his life, he argued he was actually younger than my father if you average the age of the parts, but another Schneiderman lawyer. So ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about what it means to be an American lawyer. Let's talk about our nation of laws, not of men and women. What made us different at the founding of our republic, different than any other nation that had existed up until then, was the commitment written down by the great lawyer Thomas Jefferson. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. Great words, but never forget, my colleagues, the facts on the ground contradicted these words at the time Jefferson wrote them down, right? Slavery was widespread. Women couldn't vote, couldn't own property in most places. Jews and other non-Christians suffered under a whole host of discriminatory disability laws. And the history of our nation is a history of striving to make Thomas Jefferson's words ever more true, to expand the vision of a nation created with the notion of equality and justice for all. It has always required struggle, and it has always required lawyers. So the history of the American quest for justice is really a history of great lawyers in every generation figuring out how to make our laws more just, strategizing, working with organizers, mobilizing popular opinion. You now join these honored ranks of great lawyers, and you are challenged, as we have all been challenged, to take up this mantle and move our nation closer to our ideals of equality and justice for all. We know that it was not until 1848 that a great group of women in the New York town of Seneca Falls wrote a declaration that all men and women are created equal. It took until 1865 for us to abolish slavery, and I think many of you are familiar with the great lawyer Abraham Lincoln, who was involved in that as a legal strategist as much as a political leader. And some of this in the biographies of Lincoln focus on this, and it's overlooked a lot. He really was engaged, and the movie talked about the movie about him recently talked about his involvement with the amendment to the Constitution. But he was a lawyer to his core and did legal strategy throughout that period of trouble and turmoil and ultimately redemption for our great nation. And ladies and gentlemen, don't forget, it took until 1964 for a president to sign legislation that essentially outlawed segregation. And since this is the 60th anniversary this year of Brown v. Board of Education and the 50th anniversary of the Civil Rights Act, I want to reflect a bit more on those accomplishments. I know one of the lawyers who helped draft the Civil Rights Act is here with us today and part of the Touro community. So you are linked to this tradition already, and I want you to embrace it as you go forward with pride, to take your role as an American lawyer. The work you do as a lawyer will take many forms. And if you're lucky, you'll get to do a lot of different things. That's one of the great things about a law degree. It doesn't lock you into any particular role in the legal community. You can be involved in drafting important legal documents, public policy. You will write laws. Some of you will write regulations. Some of you will try cases, argue in trial courts and appellate courts. But you all have the obligation to see that the rule of law is respected and that our national quest for greater justice and equal justice under law is fulfilled. This is our Memorial Day weekend, and we've paused earlier to honor those who have given their lives to preserve and protect our unique American system of government. But ladies and gentlemen, what is that system? Again, it is the government of laws, not men and women. Our system of law, which you are now pledged to guard and protect and grow, is more precious to us and more valuable to us than any natural resource or human talent. America succeeds because of the rule of law and because of the lawyers that make it work. Consider, my colleagues, another great lawyer, John Adams, not in his role as a revolutionary activist or a president, but as an attorney in 1770. He took on a case that says a lot about our profession and about our founders. In 1770, British Captain Thomas Preston and several other British soldiers were indicted for their roles in the murder called the Boston Massacre. Now, I have to note, as someone who spent time as a criminal defense lawyer, if your case is defined as a massacre, you've kind of lost the public relations war before you get into court, but you'll learn all about that later. But this was a charge that was very serious. They were charged with killing 5 people by firing shots into a crowd that was rioting, because they were enraged by the British occupation of Massachusetts. And the venom and the vehement hatred for these officers was so great that no lawyer would take their case. And John Adams, as a very well-respected leader of the bar in that community, stepped up to the task, despite the fact that he was one of the leading critics of British occupation, despite the fact that defending these soldiers threatened his livelihood, his reputation, his career. His commitment to the rule of law as an American lawyer outweighed all of these things. That is a part of our tradition, and I would commend to you his work on that trial. His sense of duty led him not just to defend them, but to conduct an extraordinary defense. He really, I will tell you, his charge to the jury, his speech to the jury, his closing, stands up to this day. He made a very persuasive case of acquittal or for reducing charges from murder to manslaughter, and he said, and keep in mind, this is a person who's in the process of acts of revolution to transform the law. He said, the law in all vicissitudes of government, fluctuations of passions, or flights of enthusiasm will preserve a steady, undeviating course. It will not bend to the uncertain wishes, imaginations, and wanton tempers of men. The law is our anchor, ladies and gentlemen. You are now the guardians of that law. And John Adams agreed to defend the most reviled people in the community because of his commitment to the tradition of the rule of law. And the most important thing that you can get today as you embark on your career is that this seeming dichotomy really is the genius of American law. It is our anchor. It doesn't fluctuate with regard to emotion and prejudice, but it is designed to evolve unlike any system ever created before. The laws are designed to be amended. The Constitution is designed to be amended. It is designed for a nation of those who will strive to make a more just society with every generation. That is the miracle of the American legal system, which you now join. I know sometimes people pick on lawyers, and people make lawyer jokes. Nothing will give you more satisfaction in your professional life than seeing one of them come crawling to you when they actually need a lawyer. But the legacy of Jefferson and Adams and Lincoln instructs us that this truly is one of the greatest, if not the greatest, traditions in the world today. The tradition of a law that is solid, that is an anchor that people can count on, and yet that is designed to evolve and grow as our society, as we raise our consciousness, we see the world through clearer eyes, and we move forward. The genius of American law, ladies and gentlemen, is something that you are now charged with protecting. I hope you will take this commitment seriously. You will be in private practice. You will be working in the government. Some of you will go on to be judges. It's fascinating in every law school class. There are people here today, you will look back 20 years from now, 30 years from now, and say, wow, I was in law school with that person. And you can't always tell who are the people who are going to take unusual roles in society. I don't think if we had voted at my law school graduation, anyone would have picked me to be the Attorney General of the state of New York. But opportunities come, and distinction comes with challenges. Challenge yourselves. It's apparent from the remarks so far, you have no problem challenging authority, which is very important. But challenge yourselves. Take a chance. Try something you've never done before. That's when you see how high you can rise and how well you can do. And that's what makes good lawyers turn into great lawyers. And so as we finish speaking, and in recognition of this great anniversary of the Civil Rights Act and Brown v. Board of Education, I want to speak with you about a personal hero of mine who's not as famous as the lawyers I've cited so far. It is very important to me because there are some folks who get to be there when you issue the Declaration of Independence or the Emancipation Proclamation. But never lose sight of the fact that there are great lawyers who labor in relative obscurity to create the circumstances so that those great events can take place. We are a nation of successive political movements that sought and succeeded in changing the law. From the abolition movement to the women's suffrage movement to the labor movement to the civil rights movement, that is our history as a nation. But it's always oriented towards changing the law. So the lawyer I want to speak with you about is a personal hero. His portrait hangs behind my desk at the Office of the Attorney General of the state of New York in Albany. And his name was Charles Hamilton Houston. He was a very successful African-American lawyer in Washington, D.C. In the 1920s and the 1930s. He, back then, as I'm sure you know, under the Supreme Court's ruling in Plessy v. Ferguson, separate but equal was the doctrine that enabled segregation all over the land. State and local governments enacted what were called Jim Crow laws. Separate bathrooms, separate schools, separate auditoriums, separate hospitals were commonplace. Transportation, education, every area of life was segregated, and segregation actually increased from the 1890s into the 1930s in the United States. So Charles Hamilton Houston was a very rigorous lawyer. He was a tough lawyer. He had very high standards. He was responsible for Howard University in Washington getting its accreditation as a law school, and he was regarded as a strict disciplinarian. But his commitment to the skills of lawyering was always in furtherance of the cause of equal justice under law, and to his credit, he saw when others did not the potential for the evolution of the law in the 1930s to get rid of Plessy v. Ferguson. He decided he was going to do that. Now, how did he do that? Actually, believe it or not, in 1934, Houston sat down and wrote a memo to the then fledgling group, the NAACP, with a plan to end segregation in America. He got a grant that was this massive amount of money in those days, $10,000. And ladies and gentlemen, with $10,000, Charles Hamilton Houston started the American Civil Rights Movement. At the outset, he organized a small group of lawyers, mostly his law students, including one who was his law student and protege, a young lawyer named Thurgood Marshall. And they started out on this path. They knew that if they tried right away to try and integrate elementary schools, there would be riots and lynching, so they came up with a brilliant legal strategy. They focused on graduate schools in what were called border states, not the Deep South, but border states. And the first big success was when they found a resident of Maryland, very bright college graduate, African-American, applied to the University of Maryland Law School, and they argued either you have to let him in or you have to build a separate but equal law school just for him. Charles Murray was admitted to the University of Maryland Law School. They brought a case on the same theory about Missouri, Gaines v. Canada, that went all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court, which ruled in favor of the law student, and the path to Brown v. Board of Education was set. But the most important thing, ladies and gentlemen, as you commit yourself to great causes, is that the life of Charles Hamilton Houston teaches us to think for the long haul. Think about the future you want for your children and grandchildren. Think about what role you want to play in advancing the arc of American justice, because Charles Hamilton Houston did not live to see the Civil Rights Act of 1964. He did not live to see his protege, Thurgood Marshall, argue in the Supreme Court in Brown v. Board of Education and overturn Plessy v. Ferguson. But he had the confidence in the movement he was building and the lawyers he was training to dedicate his life to this transformation and to spend his life working for something he knew he probably would never get to see. So in our world as lawyers, take this example. Challenge yourselves. Think big. Dream big. Just because the Supreme Court says it's good law doesn't mean you have to agree with them. That is part of the genius of American law. Work for transformational change. Use your skills as lawyers. Defend those who need your services. Also defend those who can pay for your services, because making money is an important part of life. And I'm really honored to have been allowed to share this day with you, because I've been here, I've been where you are. I wish you well. I think you're going to really enjoy the bar examination. I can tell you that, based on my personal experience. But believe me, it's not something you'll want to do twice. So work hard and pass it the first time. You are going to do great work. I look forward to working with many of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Attorney General, for those inspiring and heartfelt remarks. Great advice. Rabbi Krupka and Attorney General Schneiderman, would you please join me at the podium? Attorney General Schneiderman, as an outstanding public servant, a consummate advocate for the cause of justice and truth, and as an exceptional role model for our graduates, and on behalf of Dr. Alan Kadish, President of the Touro College and University System, and upon the recommendation of the Touro College Jacob D. Fuchsberg Law Center, and by virtue of the authority vested in me by the Board of Trustees of the Touro College and University System and the Board of Regents of the University of the State of New York, I confer upon you the degree of Doctor of Laws honoris causa with all rights, privileges, obligations, and immunities appertaining thereto.